What up, it's your boy CJ, the Titan of Twitch, often hitting viewing figures as high as 14, sometimes 16. Every viewer is a blessing beyond one. Prime numbers, and if you have Amazon Prime, you can actually support your favourite streamer for free. If you have money, you can Uber support your favourite streamer and also throw them bits. Twitch TV/CoffeeJesus. With me is my partner in podcasting, the king of all YouTube, often hitting watch numbers soaring above 23. The ginger, the ninja, the Borange of Orange, Mr. Patrick Stardust, Twin Humanities on YouTube. And today we are joined by the Bonnie Prince of Cane and Rinse, the exquisite cake of the informed take, a genuine professional. He will give you a verbal wrestle with no wrestle lull, Mr. James Carter of Cane and Rinse. Get episodes early and support these monsters of video game goodness at www.patreon.com/Cane and Rinse. So no E3. E3 is free, hence we present the debut chapter in our E3 coverage, the Xbox Series X gameplay reveal event. That's my best Aaron Greenberg, without having a fridge behind me.
I am hyped for this podcast.
Thanks.
That was incredible. That was quite.
That was really good. I'm glad we did 2 takes.
Wow, busted. Hold on. I'm just going to write that in the naughty book.
Black mark against
Patrick is dead.
It's going to write that down. Edit that bit out. Done. There we go.
Written on your jotter.
I don't edit much, but I only edit out my own mistakes.
So, how are we feeling going into this, and what was your expectations?
James, you're the guest. You go first.
That means Paddy hasn't thought about it yet.
Hang on.
He's now prepping.
So, feelings going into this were obviously this has been a really weird next gen kind of preamble and now reveal for many reasons, but it was weird anyway. We've had PS5 first started getting kind of teased in Wired articles, then we had a logo reveal, then we had a really weird stage performance from Mark Cerny, which was bizarre and was clearly meant to be for developers. So it's been this really weird thing where we as the gaming public are getting let in on stuff, like we're being asked to get excited for stuff that clearly wasn't meant for us as consumers of the video games. So it's been strange. But as far as Microsoft goes, I think, from my perspective, they've done a pretty good job up to this point of being really clear and open about what to expect and when, and kind of hit beats along the lines of, okay, here's what the box looks like and what the console name is. It's going to be Holiday 2020, something they're still sticking to as far as the release of the new console goes. And now they've laid out, okay, for the next 3 months, certainly, possibly every month up until console release, probably November, we're going to get something from Xbox. It's kind of weird that the opening gambit's third-party stuff, but being this is kind of like, okay, a month before E3 we'd be expecting to start to see new games be announced and other consoles be the way that these new next-gen consoles were announced. I think it makes a certain amount of sense to get some third-party stuff out. We'll get on to whether I think the event did justice to the hype a bit later, but that's kind of where I think we're at the moment. Still feel like Xbox have done a good job about being upfront about what's going on and kind of trying to get information out to people ahead of these actual official reveals. But yeah, it's weird.
Pat?
It is weird. Like I'm with you. Like this is the first gen since Christ. Since I started paying attention to E3. Behave.
First gen since BC.
I think since probably. I think since the PSP launched, I think, because I'd say I was too young when the PS2 was out to really be like, oh, I'm going to look at every bit of news. I just wasn't doing that. You know, I just assumed I wasn't going to get one because I was 12. So I just assumed I'd get one later, which I always usually did. So it was only really when I started buying things myself, like, you know, PSP, PS3 era, that I started really paying attention and getting that, you know, new machines hype. You know, it's that season again. They're showing things off. We're getting excited. But this is the first year in a while I'm just not asked yet. Like, and partly that is due to various factors. You know, we have the baby child, which now takes up all of my time. plug. I have a child now. And like partly because I'm not probably going to buy these new machines straight away. I mean, I can't throw 400, 500 quid at a new machine at the minute. You know, I've got other things to spend money on at the moment.
Let alone two of them.
Exactly. That are going to be pretty similar. But I just not that asked this time. And maybe it's because the drip feed this year has been so like low on bombast and so low on like, yo, look at this machine. Boom, explosion. Here's a car. Look, it's the same colour as the machine. It's a black box. Ooh, get hype. I'm not hype. Like, looking at, like you say, that weird, the Mark Cerny thing, which I did like because I understood kind of what he was talking about. He did lay it out in a way that someone who's not a technical person like me would understand for the most part. And like the show off with the controller on a random Tuesday one day. Like, oh, by the way, here's a controller. Like, okay, there was no build for this. It just appeared one day. And with the Xbox stuff, you know, it's starting with the third-party stuff, which for me would feel like the middle of the big show, or like the sort of titles you'd see on like the PC gaming show at E3. Maybe that's what this felt like. But yeah, it's a weird one. I'm still not really hyped yet about next gen, and with what are we now? 6 months to go tops. Like, that's not where I've been the last few console reveals and things. Even things like the Switch and the Wii U and stuff that I'm not, you know, haven't bought and were never that interested. But it was always fun to get excited about the new machines coming out. And this year, I'm just, again, maybe the current problems in the world are having a factor in that as well. Maybe we've all got bigger problems at the minute, but just not fussed really yet, which is strange. And I'm not sure if this event has made me more or less fussed. But we'll save again. We shall play our cards close to our chest, or we will try to. And I'll throw it back to you, CJ, as Captain Xbox Man.
I think I was expecting more of this event than was there, because I looked at the way that Xbox normally does their E3 shows, which have been excellent these last number of years, and have kind of cut away the third-party stuff, and was just thinking, oh, we're going to get all the big third-party reveals. And so rightfully a lot of people were going like, oh, we're going to see Elden Ring this time, and we're going to see this, we're going to see this, and this was not that event. And it took me a while to appreciate it for what it was, and I'd still say that I'm disappointed on the face of it with the event, but the more I've looked into it, the more kind of, I don't know, I've appreciated some of the aspects of it, and that wasn't, I wasn't there when I watched it the first time, but the more that I delved in and the more I kind of leaned into certain things, I enjoyed it. And if nothing else, you could say it was pretty quirky, what they were showing off. I wouldn't say the majority of the stuff that I saw was really singing out the generational leap, that the power that's been touted with both of the new machines kind of... It doesn't seem that big a change from what we've had previously. No. I don't miss with the build up to the Xbox One and the PS4 all those endless Eurogamer articles that were just like, oh, the latest rumor says that the PlayStation 4 has got this, and just I'm glad they got that all out of the way. Probably with Xbox just going to like Digital Foundry and just going like, do you want to come round? And then PlayStation pretty much going to Wired. I'm happy to get that crap out of the way. Microsoft seem very focused and very confident with their momentum leading up to launch. Like, and that's, they don't seem to be reacting to anybody. They seem to be like, this is what we've got, we believe in it, this is our roadmap. And even going back years and years to when Spencer first started, I think he's always been quite transparent and quite a good focal point for being that honest with where they're going. So it's continued that. Sony are the anomaly in this, because they reveal a logo and people go bonkers. They reveal the pad, which I think is a gorgeous pad, and people go bonkers. So
I prefer my pads ginger.
Oh,
sorry.
Glad someone said it.
But if anything, I think that Microsoft were holding the power as they were going forward, and I think the way that this event has come off, I think it's kind of derailed them a little bit. and it's handed the power back to Sony, or the pressure even back to Sony to go like, right, if you are going all in with this alleged early June launch, you can steal the power back. And the thing that's making me most excited about this up and coming generation is I can't remember a gen when we were going in where Xbox were on top of the game, PlayStation were on top of the game, and Nintendo were on top of the game. That's best for everybody, and that's super exciting. And it also means that nobody can take their eye off the prize. Absolutely nobody. So that's where my excitement lies, because I want to see what happens, and I think that really, I don't know, the fizz and the pop will come when we see the first party stuff. I think that's where the excitement is for me.
Yeah.
So my intro was kind of a little bit of a nod, a wink, and a mick take to Aaron Greenberg, and this also ties into something else that I've seen with Xbox senior staff being interviewed on really, really crap cams. And it's like, you're the biggest technology giant in the world.
Yeah.
Why does it look like... Somebody on one of the streams basically said Aaron Greenberg came back with a Master Chief helmet on, and the fidelity was so low I couldn't even tell.
I mean, he's probably got a Kinect or two lying around he could plug in, right?
Undoubtedly. He didn't need to reference that Xbox Series X fridge in the background because we could see it. But when he referenced it, it wasn't as good. But he came on with loads of energy, and I suppose you can't doubt the bloke that, I guess.
It's the kind of the dude hype energy, and I get that people respond well to that. It's not my preference, but people seem to like him. He likes his games. He knows what he wants. He likes Halo and Gears, apparently. Who knew?
But he is a gaming guy, and I think that sometimes it's easy to forget that. The people who are super passionate about this stuff aren't necessarily presenters, and some people are more comfortable than others with it. With whenever you see Phil Spencer, it's just he's really good in front of the camera, and not even in a slick way, like a slimy slick way. He's just good. But so he handed off to Matt Booty, who spoke about the safety of teams and family. And then we went into Bright Memory Infinite. So shooting, wall running, Japan, DeLorean, Bulletstorm, Bionic Commando, racing, and made by one man.
I'm going to say it right now. Absolute nonsense on that last bit. This is a person who works for FYQD Studio, who in his spare time put this together. Like, this was kind of a passion project to put this together. I fully believe that someone can put together some kind of demo based on this, and apparently there's some rumours that there were art assets used without permission and stuff, and maybe that's how you get to the point where you can put something like this together as one person. I also think it's entirely plausible that someone put together a prototype. That's not what this was. This was bells and whistles, and it's a cinematic, in-engine or not, it's a cinematic, rather than necessarily what the gameplay might end up looking like. Apparently there is an episode of it out on Steam in early access, and it doesn't necessarily look and play exactly like this. But this is not one person's work, whether it's because art assets were used that were created by someone else, or whether it's because it started as a prototype that now there's an entire studio working on. It comes from FYQD Studio. Unless that studio is one person, which maybe it's not. But no, exactly.
So I did a bit of a delve on this.
Yeah.
And the Steam prototype, it seems, is quite nicely reviewed. It's quite favourably reviewed. I found an article which said, when gamers around the world tuned in to see the first glimpse of games in the next Xbox, the very first game they saw was a first-person shooter set in a classical Chinese garden, complete with bamboo trees and pagoda lanterns. That first title showed off at the event on Thursday was Bright Memory Infinite, a game Microsoft's Damon Baker said was made by just one individual in China. It's a designation that impressed fans who have embraced the indie game for its slick graphics since it was first unveiled for PC. The original version won overwhelmingly positive reviews soon after launching on Steam last year, but it's also baffled doubters who questioned how such an elaborate game, which has been compared to Titanfall and Dark Souls, could possibly be the work of a single developer. Some people thought they'd found the answer when it was revealed that Bright Memory Episode 1 was built with art lifted from pirated software sites. Yep. In a public apology posted on Weibo in January 2019, Zhen Xiangcheng admitted that he repurposed unlicensed 3D models in the game he created. Recalling the controversy earlier this year, he said the graphics were free for download and he didn't realise they were actually stolen, blaming the error on his weak copyright awareness. The discovery forced Zeng to scramble to replace the pirated graphics with new ones, even as the game continued to amass downloads on Steam. Zen said that within a week he contacted the rights owner, who gave him an additional grace period of 5 days. With little time left, it was clear that this wasn't going to be a one-man job. The lifesaver ended up being an art colleague at the gaming company Zeng was working for at the time. The pair managed to put together new character models and get them approved by the original rights owner. The changes were far from perfect. What were once scary growling monsters became lethargic animatronics, and scenes that previously had music inexplicably turned silent. But they settled the dispute, and Zeng promised to move on to expand the game to Bright Memory Infinite. By May 2019, armed with proceeds from sales on Steam, Zeng quit his day job and moved back to his hometown to focus on the project. I've never actually liked working outside, he wrote. I only worked at a gaming company to make a living. I actually prefer to create things on my own, and that's why I don't like having too many restrictions from other people. Every time the game company presented me with a monthly update plan, I felt extremely bored. With his newfound freedom, Zeng spent his days working on Infinite while porting the original game to mobile at night. The latter resulted in Bright Memory Mobile, an hour-long adventure available for $4 on iOS and $2 on Android. Zeng maintains that he's still the only full-time developer on the game, but he's previously said he plans to hire outside help for projects unrelated to the core game development, such as poster art. In a Weibo post on Thursday, Zeng says he's currently about 40% finished with Infinite, but he expects to complete the work by the end of the year. It will launch on both Xbox and PC, and Zeng says that anyone who's purchased Episode 1 on Steam or GOG will receive a free upgrade to the sequel. He also offered a few hints on the plot. The armoured soldiers that appeared near the end of the trailer came from ancient times through time travel. The paranormal occurrences in the story will be based on Einstein's theory of relativity. So it's an interesting piece of backstory.
It's very interesting, and there's no way to cover that in this conference. I just felt it was a little disingenuous that the only comment towards its development that was made was, made by one person. It's like, no, you can't just say that and not give some context. Don't mention it.
Because you see, when I found that article and I read it, I kind of, in many ways, I was rooting for the guy because he looks like he's made a mistake.
Yep.
They showed a GIF of the monster that he had beforehand and the one that he had to kind of replace it with, and it's genuinely not the same. But I'd love to see this guy pull this off. I'd always rather sort of lean into positivity in that, and it looked weird.
yeah, and it looked impressive. Like at first, I thought it was like, is this a new Crisis game or something? And the very fact that I might have mistaken it for that tells you everything you need to know about how impressive this trailer looked. Shades of Bulletstorm as well, with the kind of the leash or the whip you're using. Yeah, it looks really impressive. Just again, another odd one, a bit like I'm never going to remember the name of it. The military squad multiplayer shooter that Xbox have had at a couple of their conferences, I think now. That's from China and one of the biggest played games in the entire world.
Oh, Christ, can't think of it, but I know the one you mean too.
That's the one that Remedy have worked on, isn't it?
Yeah, they've worked on the single player for it.
Is it Crossfire?
That sounds about right, yeah.
Crossfire X or something like that.
Yeah, thank you, well remembered. Yeah, and it's got shades of that, where it's just this game that comes out of nowhere that already exists, but clearly has an interesting development history behind it, and yeah, interesting one to open with as well, because there are other games on here that we have heard of before that could have opened this show, and that wasn't what they went with. So yeah, interesting.
I think sort of correlating the actual article and that video, if that's the graphical fidelity the guy's now working with,
yeah,
even sort of design wise, if that's what he's kind of got ahead of, or he's got on top of, good luck to you, mate.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. I don't know how long that he's been working on this, but if he reckons he'll be done by the end of the year, even with people helping out with art, and it sounds like now what he's doing is sourcing art from elsewhere to put into the game, so he's not creating everything. But I wonder if we're going to see something along the lines of Order 1886,
yeah.
Where it might be a really short, tight campaign, but just looks really, really gorgeous because all the effort's gone into crafting something that's really kind of refined, but
I mean, if it is a labour of love, that comes through on those Steam reviews, because I had a look at a few of them, and people were like, the only thing I can criticise it about is like, I want more of it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I'd rather give the guy the benefit of the doubt, because he's been straight up with the fact that like, I had no idea.
Yeah. And it starts off sounding like, okay, one person did this. I don't believe that. Oh, this is an asset flip. Well, that makes a lot more sense. And then you realise, no, it's not an asset flip, because as soon as the guy realised what had happened, did his best to put it right. And absolutely,
and he was pretty self-deprecating as well.
You can't ask for more than that.
Yeah. Pad?
Yeah.
It's a shooting game, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It is.
It's just thought I'd wait to get a word in edgewise.
This is the content I crave.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I literally said, like, when it first came out, I sat there and fool me went, oh good, a shooting game, great. Like, it just looked like a normal shooting game, and then it wasn't. But I mean, stuff we've seen before with like the grappling hook, and the weather was nice. I believe the wind was really, really nice. I thought it wasn't. Again, they say, I think I agree with you, James. I don't think it was necessarily gameplay. I think indicative of gameplay, but it definitely seemed cutscene-esque in terms of its cinematic quality. And the DeLorean at the end really left a bad taste in my mouth. I don't know why. It's like, oh, good, here we go.
I'll tell you one
thing.
Look
at this. Look, time travel. Look, we've got DeLorean's time travel. Look.
This is the work of one man, and it looked like that, and there was that much madness in it. And then later on in this show, we have a studio as big as Avalanche, who essentially have you running down a hill shooting dinosaurs.
Yeah, it looked cool. I mean, I would prefer to have seen like actual gameplay, because apparently it seems to be a real game, which I didn't know until the chat you just had. So surely there could have been more believable gameplay in there. Maybe it was just missing some Ubi Bants. I don't know.
So, I mean, the weird thing about it, and I think we're going to end up saying this on quite a few of these games, is, yes, this was supposed to be they didn't pitch it as third party, but our partners. So it's not first party stuff. It's going to be other people who are working on Xbox games. They've already said that every game's going to carry the optimized for Series X badge. And a lot of them have smart delivery on them, so if they do come out before Series X launches, etc. So there's a lot about these games that there is interesting stuff about, and there's a lot of good in this presentation, but it was pitched as a gameplay demonstration, or a demonstration of Xbox Series X gameplay, and I don't think for many of these games we can say hand on heart that that's
100%. I'm with you.
That feels genuine. Whether or not it's true in a semantic sense, but this is a perfect example of something like, I've heard a couple of people say, I've played the episode 1 that's on Steam, it doesn't look like this, and not just it doesn't look like this in terms of they've had to change the art, etc. It doesn't look like this in terms of the level of polish, etc. This is at best vertical slice gameplay, but probably just something rendered in engine.
I think if there's anything that we've really gotten behind these last number of years, it's kind of like beating the drum for the creator that's climbing their way up the ladder, often impossibly.
Yep.
And there might be things that don't come together at the time, or there might be things that completely miss. But with an ambition, there'll be parts where you go, "Oh wow, that's really cool! I enjoyed that."
Yeah.
So I keep my fingers crossed for the bloke.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So we then had Dirt 5, a racing game that's apparently more arcadey than Forza, and Troy Baker and Nolan North are in a game together, finally. I'm so pleased for them.
I screamed. The baby was asleep and I woke her up, so I went, fuck! I literally yelled at the telly at that. I was so angry. Are we going to cover like both sections of this to here? Because I've written notes.
We'll
do both
dump them in at the same time, yeah.
First, I'm really glad to see Cars made it.
Car made it in, even though it's not Microsoft first party.
Maybe they could have had like a Zoom call with Car in the garage, maybe just to show Car was there,
or just like a sort of dummy that somebody's written COVID on, and like dropping the car on it, and then Phil Spencer comes out and just gives you a thumbs up and a little wink, and then walks off.
Yeah, again, they did it again. They said, "Hey, it's gameplay," and it's not. It's just a very pretty trailer of in-game graphics, but that's not what the game is going to look. Maybe from the inside cockpit, the kind of few brief snatches we got from inside, but I have seen 100 trailers for 100 different car games, and this looks no different in any way. You could have told me this was on PS4 and I would have believed you in a heartbeat. I maybe because we're watching on a YouTube stream or whatever, maybe these kind of 60 frames, 120 frames per second they were talking about doesn't translate well to YouTube, but I just watched it and I nothinged it. Car was there and I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
Why Car? Why did you let me down, Car?
Has anybody ever played a Dirt game?
Filth. We don't talk about that.
I think I briefly tried a demo at one point. It's a rally game originally. Dirt Rally was the series originally, and that's kind of the confusing part of this for me, is that the Dirt series Codemasters they're known for their racing. They're known for a particular style of racing, and this trailer seemed to be going really hard after turning Dirt, a series that has a fairly unique identity in the world of video game racers, into something that doesn't have that much of a unique identity. This looked all kinds of Forza Horizon, and at the moment that is my racing game of choice, because it's the closest I can get to something approaching an arcade style Burnout racer. It's not.
Is this the same dev that PlayStation let go after that PS4 racer that started out really broken and ended up getting quite good?
Drive Club. No, it's not.
No,
it's not them. No, Codemasters have been independent for quite a while. Codemasters.
No, because I know Codemasters employed.
You're right. They did bring that team on, didn't they?
Because I think a number of them went over bizarrely enough, a number of them went down to work at Playground Games. And I think the vast majority of them, like Codemasters, signed them up to do stuff. Because when I was looking at this, that was the first thought. I was like, "Oh, this is the Drive Club guys," which would make sense looking at it.
Maybe.
I like the colours. It was clearly going for a Forza Horizon aesthetic.
Yeah, and variety of different vehicle types and locales, and they had very Forza Horizon arcade racer style music over the top.
But Horizon's really got its own identity now, and it's very sincere in doing what it does. And I think when anything apes that, it normally looks like it.
Yeah.
So we then went
Whoa!
What?
Too quick! Slow! Come on back!
I thought you'd done your car.
You've jumped out of car. I thought I'd let you get back in car. We've still got some road to travel. Get back in car for a moment. Something I liked, the most interesting stuff on this was in that little interview at the end. A couple of comments, because I think this had some of the highest high points and also some of the lowest low points on these two presentations, because very meh originally, and then they get to the interview at the end and they're like, "Yeah, we've got 4-player split screen on a
I didn't notice that.
We've got 4-player split screen on a goddamn console again." Remember that? Remember meeting humans in your real life and sitting on a sofa with them? I mean, not anymore because of the COVID, but you can sit down with friends, and they rather optimistically said you can buy the game day one, sit down, invite 2 of your friends over, hope they've bought themselves a controller, and then you can play a game.
I like that though. They're of all the things that they're spitting out about ray tracing and all that sort of stuff. Actually, coming back to what you were saying, having something that runs like really, really well, 4-player split screen sounds fantastic to me.
Because local multiplayer is still magical. It's still you can't. Online does not feel the same as local. When certain games, I mean, we've got a bunch of games that we keep on the computer on the PS4, that never come off. Like we've got your Tower Falls is never coming off. We've got your Gang Beasts is never coming off. Your Crash Team Racing is never coming off because you can just boot it up and have a really good time straight away with people, and they always work. So I thought that was really, really cool. They were putting that in, because these days you don't see it that often. So I thought that was really, really nice. Use the hardware. If it's so powerful and grunty, let's go back to doing that again. Let's make it look beautiful and have 4 people play it. I like the idea of you can choose between 4K with 60 frames a second, or you can change it to 120 frames a second. That's great. That's what I want to hear about. That sounds, like an interesting thing. I don't want to hear you've bought Troy Booker and Nolan North, who are going to be their rival Carman, and there's going to be other recognisable faces in there as well. Who cares about that? It's a car game. We're here for car, not Nolan North.
Really
but
weird,
I think it was.
It was nothing. It was star fucking. I hated it.
I think Phil Spencer said previously that he thinks this generation is going to be more about better frame rates and being able to do more in the way that you were saying. And I know the tech places are always going to lean into the ray tracing and stuff, but I like the thought of even if it is, can you imagine 60 frames per second on a racing game for a 4-player split screen? Because that sounds good to me. That sounds that to me is a selling point that should have been super flagged up from the start of that. Amidst all of those colours, amidst all of the the music and the sliding around on the ice and stuff, that should have literally been about 40 seconds into it.
So it is part of the problem here that the stuff. So usually generations, or for the past few generations, generation to generation, it's been, oh, look how shiny the graphics. This time round, we already have machines that can do 4K in terms of the Pro and the Xbox One X. Whether it's true 4K very often, no, it's not. It's upscaled or it's dynamically sort of shifted down. But therefore, the shininess, it's not going to be extra shiny in terms of the resolution, but more stable, more frequently 60 or 60 plus hertz frame rates, and ray tracing are not necessarily things you can easily show off in a demonstration like this. Even if they had done proper gameplay, you can't really show that when most people are going to be watching in 1080p at maybe 30, 60 frames per second. You can't guarantee everyone's on a 60 FPS screen. So it's one of those where it's a bit like HDR. How do you show that when people aren't watching on an HDR screen? It's difficult, but equally well, showing improved resolutions was never really all that easy to do either. So yeah, I get why they maybe shied away from that, but that's what I wanted to hear about as well, was, no, here's an example of what this console can do that the previous generation can't. That's what surely this is about, and I absolutely agree. This looked like a Forza Horizon trailer that we would have seen any one of the past 2 games that came out on the Xbox One. But console.
It didn't have that, no pun intended, it didn't have that X factor that the Forza Horizon games have got.
Yeah, really strange. I think local split screen is absolutely fantastic, and that's something they should have definitely made more of. I think one point there as well is getting hold of 4 controllers on day one should be really straightforward because Xbox One controllers work.
I genuinely didn't even consider that. Of course they do.
That's something that they've said, and part of that is that and I think the same has been rumored, if not confirmed, by Sony for the PlayStation 5 as well. The difference being that there isn't as much there's a fairly good feature parity between the Xbox Series X and the Xbox One controller. There's not a massive difference there, whereas the DualShock 4 to the DualSense 5 or the DualSense, I guess it's not 5, is it? Is slightly more different in terms of will you be able to do everything on the DualShock 4? I don't know, but
the one thing they've said about the Xbox Series X pad, they've said like they've been working on lower latency stuff, and that's been a huge focus of the new pad. And they said that on day one that the pad will have that upgrade, but also that upgrade will also be downloadable for the Xbox One pads.
Yeah.
So it's like, well fucking played.
Yeah.
It's not ignoring the fact that people have bought pads in the past. Like, all of them are in the mix if you are bringing people over for stuff like that. And I like it's not that they're not leaning into, but the new pad has got all this, so you can still use your old ones, but the new pad's got all this reduced latency and stuff. No, that download's going to be available for the old pad as well.
Yeah.
Well played.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could we possibly call them controllers? Because every time you say pad, something goes off in my brain.
Okay, Patty.
We're getting our new pads on our Xbox pads. I'm going, what? Who are these pads? Are you replacing me?
So we then went to Scorn, and this lot I only know them because they sponsored Easy Allies podcast for a long time. So when I saw it, I just heard sort of Brandon Jones just go like Scorn. They sponsored Easy Allies for a bit, and then they released a gameplay taster a few years back, which was super grim and unsettling. And if I remember right, there was a gun where you pulled people's teeth out and used them as bullets.
That's straight out of Existenz, isn't it?
I don't know. I've not seen it.
Yeah, so Existenz...
This is the second time in 2 days I've had a conversation about that film.
So we watched that film last year because I thought it would be good to watch a film about like layered environments or layered perception through video games in prep for the Superhot recording on Kane and Rince last year. Wasn't relevant. It was incredibly disturbing, but yeah, I'm sure that there was a gun that you loaded with teeth in a clip. It was weird. Anyway,
it was made of bones or something horrible. It was just
I think the design work on this. I mean, it's very sort of HR Giga, but the design work is exceptional, and there's something quite genuinely unsettling about it. And a lot of games will go for horror. This just really turned my stomach, and in a way that I admired what it had done. Some of the architecture that was there, like the guy who was, depending on which way you looked at it, was either eating somebody's heart or was kissing between kind of the other creature's sort of breasts, or there was the baby that was locked in the cage and that was growing inside it, and it was one of those where I stared at it and I just went, all credit to your art director, but dear Lord, this is not for me. And I don't mean that in a put down. It creeped me out.
Took me until the trailer, the name of the game's come up on screen, to realise that this wasn't an Alien game, though. I mean, copy and paste. We will get to this later, but God, it starts with a big grey-looking alien structured building, cool, it's the ship from Alien, and there's an empty pilot's chair looking thing, cool, it's the pilot's chair from Alien. There's a man laying down with something in his stomach, that's from Alien. A little mouth comes out of a thing on a wall, and then a smaller mouth comes out, the alien mouth, that's the alien mouth.
Was that
and
a mouth
drippy
in this,
goo.
Was
it
that
looked a bit like a mouth. It looked like an alien mouth. It kind of came out, and then another bit came out, like a double mouth.
I got another appendage to me.
Yeah,
I got big tongue mouth out of that.
Well.
Big tongue mouth. I was big tongue mouth on that, and you're all dirty boys.
Thing is, though, within that, Alien itself as a film hasn't moved that slowly and that gracefully, that disgustingly gracefully, since the original film.
I mean, but you're right. I don't want to look at it. It's yuck. It yucked me up. I don't want to look at it anymore. It's very pretty, and I mean, we should have had a bell or something, because gameplay reveal, ting, no gameplay. It looked pretty, But like, do we know that's what it looks like? I know it probably does, but
I do know what it looks like, and it turned my stomach to see somebody playing it. It is genuinely kind of moving through meat corridors and things coming at you, and not having bullets, and like mashing something up and taking their teeth out and loading guns. And it was one of those where I was staring at it and just going, I can't look away. It's not for me, but I can't look away. No. So again, like, good luck to them, because if anything else, you're seeing somebody that's possibly a fan of the first Alien.
Oh, for sure.
Do you think
has not seen anything since then that's kind of pushed the same buttons, not even in the Alien films, and has gone, this is what I want to do with it. And I guess the proof's sort of in the pudding with the final thing. But again, like, good luck to you, mate.
Oh yeah, as a rendition of an art style, it was like absolutely bang on in ways that there's loads and loads of games and films that do a take or pull little bits and things from Giger art style. This went wholesale for it in a way that very, very few games have ever tried to do. Very few types of any kind of medium have tried to do, really, not like to this extent. I don't know if I want to play it, but I'm really intrigued by the rendition of it, like by the repetition of it, and what the game ends up looking like. I've no idea, but yeah.
And the silence was one of the scariest things about it as well. Yeah. The way that the camera moved around, and there were no sort of footsteps. You know, we used to lots of first person stuff really kind of moving as we move, almost as if like, oh look, you're moving into this environment, looking up, looking down. It was just like these slow camera pans as death emerged from architecture, and it's it did take my breath away within scope. And honestly, if anybody was doing an Alien film that was going to genuinely go back to the feel of the original, you'd go, oh yeah, that's your guy.
Yeah.
But it's a hard thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah. So we then went for Chorvs. Oh, sorry, Chorus.
I've been going with Corvs.
I like Chorvs.
Chorus.
I know it is. I just looked at it and just went like...
They typed a V. They made a mistake, and now we have to crucify them for it.
So this is... Fish Lab Studios are apparently responsible for a game called Manticore, which what looks like a very similar space game on the Nintendo Switch. This one features a sentient ship, looks a bit Star Fox, didn't do a lot for me. It was a lot of... For me, it was a lot of fizz bang wallop, but the game underneath it just seemed like something quite simple that I've played a million times before.
Yeah, it's weird because
it looked pretty. You go first. You go.
I'm just going to say it looked like we got some gameplay here. I could believe that the sequences of space combat that looked like it might be gameplay, at least, you know.
That's what I thought. I mean, I thought that's our first real indication of that looks like it's actually a game. Like they're flying a ship and shooting a thing. Like that looks like what you would see if you were playing this game, not like a shot from outside the ship, but. Yeah, I mean, it looks... I mean, visually, like, design-wise, there's, like... The bits where the lady was walking around, there's, like... A bit No Man's Sky, a bit Control almost, from what I've seen. That weird sort of alien... A bit Destas in places as well. But here, I think is where things have started to fall apart a little bit, like, visually for me, because I thought the character face looked a bit rubbish. Like, when it was... Not the kind of like the close-up shots of the eyes being like, now we fight together. Like when she was just like walking around, I don't think it looked that good. Like it looked just like an average-looking face model that you'd see on a game from this gen-ish. It's kind of a couple of other ones have stuck out since we were from watching the show, but I mean, for all the powerful hardware in the world, the designers have still got to be able to make the faces look good and like make them animate well. And if they don't animate well, I think it stands out more that it didn't 100%. Gel in nicely. And I don't know. Like, work on your facial phonemes a little bit more, please.
Somebody did make a comment with regards to this, which I hadn't thought about, and they said, "Oh, it looks like a 3D version of." Now, this was like super early on PS4 and Vita. Was it called Velocity?
Yeah.
Or Velocity X?
Velocity.
Yeah.
It was Velocity on
Future Lab.
It was Velocity originally as a PS Mini, And then it was Velocity
2X
Ultra was the remake of it that they released, and then Velocity 2X was the sequel. Yeah.
Because with like the super speed up bits and the slowed down bits, I was like, oh yeah, I can see that. That's really good. And I'm wondering if, because in the same way as Paddy was saying about the 4-player split screen on Dirt 5, I'm wondering if this is going to be one of those games that's actually almost falls back into PS1, PS2 type of game, but is given such flourish and is so much fun to play that it maybe like accumulate sales because of that, because it isn't difficult to get into. It isn't it isn't sort of a mindfuck. You can just lose yourself in something simple and absorbing. And if they have got like time trials and leaderboards and all that kind of stuff, I can see that that sort of soup being quite tasty.
The equivalent of Resogun for PS4, that kind of thing, where you've got an arcade shooter, you've got leaderboards or multiplayer or co-op or however you want to do it, but get people playing a game that is easy to pick up. I think the incongruous part of that then for me is all of the cinematics around this pilot and who she is and who the voiceover is and all of that sort of story side of it, and all the serious tone that brings just doesn't necessarily fit alongside it to me. Like, cut that out and just give the gameplay if the gameplay's up to that. I think the other thing, so if the character model looked like that literally as you're playing the game, that looked pretty decent. It didn't look too bad to me. It was, it looked like there was a lot of pixels on screen and in her face. Whatever I might think of the art style, but that part of it didn't look like gameplay. That looked like a cinematic, and if that's the cinematic, well, there's other people doing that better. And I think so her face in particular reminded me. So there was a lot of Control vibes in it, but her face in particular and the close-ups of it reminded me of the Hellblade Senua's Saga cinematics that we've seen previously from Xbox, and those absolutely blew this out of the water in terms of the fidelity, in terms of the animation, in terms of the way it looks like a face in expressing emotions, and that was stunning. Albeit, yes, a cinematic in-engine or not, whatever, it's a cinematic, but that gave me an idea of what they're aiming to be able to do with Series X. This, as you said, Paddy, was a bit like, well, okay.
And I will say as well,
it looks nice, but
I think subtitles for these as standard, because when the spooky ghost ship, maybe bad guy voice kicked in at the end, I understood 2 words of that total, and it sounded like they were trying to speak English words, and I could not make them out. It was just like, what are they saying? Like, there were words in there, and I couldn't hear them. I have no emotional connection because I don't know what you said.
I think the key for this game, if it is fun to play, is going to be price. That if they price this at like $12.99, and people can't not pick it up because it's it's like, oh, it's supposed to be fun. If they go in like 20-25 quid, I think they're doing themselves out of sales.
Hang on, let me just look out. I can see a pig flying past outside.
This
will be 60 English pounds, and I will put £60 on the fact that this will be £60.
Wow.
Slap.
So we then went to Madden 21, where
it's ball.
It's egg. The way he was sitting, it definitely was ball.
Right, yeah, this is interesting because it was in my head. I was like, "Ha! My name is Fizzy Nutcakes from the St. Twinkly Antlers, and this is Madden 21. And if you buy it on Xbox One, you get it free on Xbox Series X." And at the bottom of the screen, it says EA.com, blah blah blah. And apparently, EA are only offering upgrades until March 2021, and after that, you have to buy another one. Sneaky fox.
So, even further clarification on that: if you have to have bought the game by December, you can then redeem it by March.
Oh, okay.
So it's even tighter window than that. I think that's the right dates. Apologies if I'm wrong on that, but that's what I had heard. So I don't think they're technically calling this smart delivery, but they're doing their own version of it, which is we'll give you.
It's EA. It's not smart, is it? Come on.
No,
it's EA. Smart and EA don't go together. I will say at this point, I wrote a note down at this point of like, it's the smart delivery cross-buy. We get it now. You don't need to explain it from the beginning. And oh my god, by the end was I sick of them explaining how it works again. from the start. Like, so do you know it's really cool that if you buy, like, we fucking know we've been here for an hour and you've said it 15 times. We know it's a good feature, but we know. Ugh. I will say, Madden trailer officially put a mark on the board for gameplay. Gameplay wasn't from the Xbox Series 1X. It was from the older games, but there was gameplay. So there you have it. Good lord.
Yeah. So we then went to Sarah Bond, a lady who keeps the controller in a wicker box. Also her cushions in a slightly bigger wicker box.
It was weird.
And probably lives in a wicker box. In fact, she should change her name to Sarah Box.
Working from home changes people, doesn't it?
It did make
me laugh. Go tidy this up. Where?
Seems like a top last though, but it did make me laugh. I was like, oh look, a controller's in a box, and a cushion's for a box. It's like, what? That's the sort of person that I would go on a date with, and I'd get back to their house, and my brain would just be going like, woo, 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 woo. leave. So
the controller's in a wicker basket. Where's she going to put your blood?
She then introduced Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, which I will say now, for me personally, this was awful.
Yep.
What was that? Joker dancing, smiley faces, weird world stuff. It doesn't even get by with being intriguing. In fact, my only intrigue was that the vampire at the end looked like the brilliant Cara Ellison, who's one of the writers on it.
Game, yeah.
But otherwise, like, who are you pitching this towards other than people who played the first one? Because I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, that looks like, fidelity-wise, that looks like a current-gen game. Yeah. And it probably is. That's just going to get like up-res and stuff. But that trailer was terrible.
Yeah. I
wrote the word hateful down. Yeah. Like, and let's do the let's play a swing song while people dance around. Like, because Fallout do that. Let's do that. Like, that's a fun thing. Like, I didn't know what this was at first because I don't have much connection to the franchise at all. But like, the whole time I was looking at it thinking like, is that the Joker? Is this a weird Batman game or something? Like, he's making them smile? I think, in places, the hair on the first guy, the guy in the white suit, like, what was his hair doing? Like, that's not how hair works. Like, I wrote that I think this looks like a PS3 game or an Xbox 360 game in places. Like, it did not look nice at all. Like, it looked horrible. Again, going back to what you said about Chorus, but this was the one that really nailed down what hit that point in for me, like on the second watch, is that, yeah, the hardware might be amazing, but good lord, if the people using it can't design a face, what are you going to do?
What was the first thing you saw? You thought when this trailer started, and you're saying like Joker, but did you also go, "We happy few"?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's a good point.
Except that's now a Microsoft first-party studio, so it obviously wasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
that was.
This was really bad. Like, there are times where you put a trailer out and leave the audience guessing until half or three-quarters or all of the way through the trailer as to what it is. When your game has already been like putting itself out there for 2 years now, as Bloodlines 2 has, that's not the time. Like, let people know what the game is. It didn't look like, it did a really bad job of looking like Vampire the Masquerade, because of this weird Christmas scene where you've got someone stringing what appears to be a family up in just this openly sadistic way, that had this been like a Manhunt sequel or something like that, I'd have thought, that fits. But
if you're leading somebody into a franchise, like, this is one of those that could have done with like a little bit of a story trailer to like a little bit of intrigue, a little bit of sort of taster to lead you in. What this trailer comes across as like a bunch of people that are so far up their own arse that they think that they can play a song over the footage that it gave us, and people who aren't familiar with the franchise will give a fuck. And I don't. If anything, it's pushed me away from it.
But and footage of what is presumably a vampire dancing around, that's not going to be what you do. That might be a side mission or something that you go and deal with this guy who's doing these things or whatever, but that's not relevant to what it's going to be like to play the game. So therefore it's just showing off this grotesque scene. It's weird. It's a really weird thing to have chosen to show, I think, without any context for how it relates to what the player is doing. it was very bizarre, and as you say, looked to be capturing that kind of Joker. I'm a sadist dancing to a swing tune. It's just
couldn't
really
be less
weird.
Interested, especially in times like these.
And the thing is, I am interested in that game. And the other weird thing is, if they wanted, here's a bit of a tease for the story, they've already put out Coteries of New York. I believe that's the name of it, which is like a narrative game as a kind of bridge. So they can tease something that extends on from that, remind people that's available, and here's how it's going to blend into or lead into the sequel, or here's how it relates. There's ways to do this where you get people interested in the narrative, which at this point, a game that we've known about for years and have seen multiple times, and was due to be out by now. Originally, it's been pushed. Get people interested in the story. Don't get them don't try and hook them with some weird macabre Christmas scene. It's just bizarre.
Well, Joker came out, didn't it? And everyone seemed to like that film. Maybe they're trying to hook those people in. I mean, maybe cynically, the cynical in me, it's not for me either. I mean, there was some gameplay, a little bit scraps of shots of some scripted takedowns.
Around Seattle again. Someone jumping around using vampire abilities in Seattle. That's interesting. That's stuff we've not seen about this game before. If you want to catch people's attention, do that when you're announcing the game. If you want to catch people's attention now, all you're going to do is put off people who might have been interested otherwise with that.
But also, this is the perfect point to get people's attention at a time when everybody's going to be scrapping for the few bits of change people have got on the other side of buying the new machines. So if you're not making an attentive splash, I think you've kind of missed the boat. So
good segue.
Missed the
right. I've got something extra for this, and it's good. But also, let me say that this is the first point in the conference where I leaned towards the telly and went, "What is that?" So
do you know what that was, CJ? That's a video game.
But an actual one that I wanted to play from the off. This had I mean, I was looking, I was thinking puzzles, looks gorgeous, sea monsters, all that kind of stuff. So I looked into it a bit more. What's
it called?
Call of the Sea.
There we go.
An otherworldly tale of mystery and self-discovery set in the 1930s. Call of the Sea is a love letter to the adventure game genre that follows one woman's desperate search for her missing husband in the isolated reaches of the South Pacific. On an uncharted island paradise, you'll discover the remnants of lost civilization and unlock puzzles and secrets to reveal the fate of your husband's ill-fated expedition. But in the course of your search, you may soon come to realize that not everything on this strange island is as it seems. Features: explore a lush tropical island gorgeously modelled in Unreal Engine 4, brimming with amazing sights, lost ruins and occult mysteries. Investigate clues left by previous inhabitants and solve a variety of puzzles to unlock the mystery of what happened. Experience a suspenseful, emotional journey of self-discovery, fully voiced by BAFTA-winning actress Cissy Jones, Firewatch, Life is Strange and The Walking Dead. It then said about the company that made it, Out of the Blue. Out of the Blue is an independent game studio comprised of 12 veteran game developers based in Spain, Greece and the US, who have individually worked on titles including Red Matter, Metroid Samus Returns, Deadlight, Guilt, Celeste, Guacamelee 2 and Space Lords. Sharing a collective vision that brought them together, their mission is to create engaging stories with vivid environments, drawing the player in and enabling them to explore the world around them with a sense of wonder. The otherworldly adventure game Call of the Sea is the studio's first game and a love letter to the team's biggest passions: adventure, puzzles and story-driven games. Yes. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I got Abzu vibes a little bit. That kind of explore a cool undersea place. That's really cool. I like that a lot.
What was that puzzle game that you got on PS Plus, and I think it was on Xbox at a certain
The Witness.
The Jonathan Blow one. Yeah. It kind of gave me that little vibe as well. Apparently there's a big sort of Cthulhu influence to it as well. This was one of those that, especially compared to the trailer that came before, I just looked at it and I was like, I want to know more about this. You've drawn me into the story. And, as I've looked into a few of the details, I've gone, yeah, I could lose myself in this. It looks super pretty, stylish. I like the voiceover. I like the way that they tantalised and brought us into it. It looks good.
I like the voiceover part. I like the trailer. I am wondering if there is a different way of showing off this kind of game, though, because a lot of them do default to the voiceover over someone walking quietly through some woods. Like that, I feel like I see that all the time. Like, is there not another way of showing this kind of game off? And not to say that this wasn't good, because I like I say, I enjoyed what I saw. I liked it. I'm up for it. Like, I hope it's one of the ones that makes it onto the machine I will buy eventually, because that looks like something I'd like to play. You know, I like the fish people stuff. It's fun. Is there a different way of marketing them now? I don't know.
Honestly,
maybe it's just me getting old and jaded these days. I haven't watched too many of these goddamn things.
So I think the only other way I can think I've seen these kind of marketed is you see a 1 or 2 minute sequence that culminates in something weird or interesting or surprising happening. But the difficulty is that with games like this, if this is going to be exploration heavy, mechanics and gameplay light,
you can't show off.
There's not, showing it off could end up putting a lot of people off, because you're either showing a puzzle or you're showing someone just walking around looking at stuff, and there's not necessarily lots going on. So I get why they kind of default to this way of doing it. Thankfully, when it looks as beautiful as this does, and the voiceover does intrigue, there's a question being asked, where's Harry? They've gone here to find Harry, etc. I was immediately...
I'll say nothing not to say that I have an answer for that question. It was just something I was thinking about when I was watching it. Yeah, I'm up for this. That looks really good. Like, and actual goddamn, hopefully anyway, that was gameplay. Like it, walking.
And the irony is that it was probably the most super cartoony thing that we'd seen, and yet it felt the most human and the most engaging. So yeah, that's I liked the look of it, and it wasn't on my radar. So we then got The Ascent. Apparently ex-Bulletstorm devs, cyberpunk Diablo-like, although some people seem to think it was a real-time strategy game, which I can't really see. It did nothing for me, but others seem to be quite excited for this.
I can definitely see the confusion with the genre, because I don't know whether this is a tactical, like, strategy style game. It looked like it was moving too quickly for that, but it looked like it was moving too slow and not quite dynamically enough to be like a twin-stick shooter or something, which it could easily be as well with the way the reticle was moving. I came away thinking I'm not really sure what that is. But hey, dystopian futures, we've not seen those often or ever at all, so at least it's unique in that respect.
I will say, I think it looked like visually... it looked at equal points good and bad. Yeah. Like, it looks nice and crunchy and spacey. That thing me and CJ like a lot, which is dirty, crunchy space that looks like it came out of an old comic. Like, it looks like Warhammer-ish in that sort of, like...
It looks like Warhammer Inquisitor, like, in the way that it looks like it controls. But it didn't seem to have the same level of sincerity, because Warhammer Inquisitor was working from the Warhammer look, which is super strong. This just... It looked like a... and I don't mean this in a criticism, but it looked like a French version of kind of cyberpunk. It got that sort of... I don't know if anyone is of a certain age, like Delphine games or a Captain Blood. It got that kind of quirky European take on cyberpunk that's very different from the glam of, you know, the regular one. So... Don't know, but it didn't hit me visually. It just looked like stuff that I'd seen a million times before, and it seemed disinterested.
Maybe like stuff you've seen, but with like more craft, more detail going on, more crunchy bits. I will say, like, I thought like the actual characters looked nice, but I didn't think they were animated particularly well. And again, it stood out to me that the animation on like the shop looking guy, like the bald-headed alien man that they cut to a few times. He just didn't seem to have enough bones. Like, he wasn't emoting very well. He looked very nice, but he wasn't emoting like a person would. Like, and I think that's what I expect now on these more powerful machines. Is I expect faces to look a bit more like and behave like a face.
Did you think that the characters didn't particularly stand out from the environments because everything seemed to mud together.
Mm-hmm.
And
maybe that's intentional, though. Maybe it's like everything's a bit dirty.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. It wasn't for me.
Like I say, it's not the sort of thing I play either. But I think like the shots where you saw them running around and you could see like quite far in the distance, and it looked pleasantly kind of dusty and particly and speculary. Like it looked kind of nice. And again, my complaints about animation were on the close-up bits at the cutscenes, I guess, which aren't the craft of the game. I probably suppose in a game like this, it's not going to be. I wouldn't imagine it would have a heavy story component, but who knows these days? But it just didn't seem very. Like you say, I would say it didn't seem super next gen, apart from the fact it looked crunchier than before. Like I feel like I've seen this game before, but I haven't. But again, I'm sure they're working very hard, but not for me.
So the next one for me was a strange one because I went through incremental emotions with it, and the more that I watched it afterwards, the more it super got on my radar, and that's The Medium. For me, star of the show by some way. It looked weird, quirky, sincere. Seems to be Bloober doing their Silent Hill, Akira Yamaoka sharing scoring duties. The interview that was later showed a passionate developer. I liked the 80s Polish setting and how he actually explained that for
why that was
people,
important and why it was going to be relevant. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And from what I can tell, the medium herself is pregnant in the modern day, which obviously adds a certain sense of extra vulnerability. So it seems that when she's investigating and she goes into the spirit world, she isn't. And much of it is apparently set in an abandoned hotel. Like I say, that later interview was really great and added so much more detail to it. And Pad, we've jumped up and down about smaller devs getting bigger and more ambitious. And my lack of playing horror games means that Bloober have been under my radar. I played a bit of recent Kane and Rinse. Observer, yeah, which they are doing up for next year as well on next gen. It seemed like there was lots of intrigue in there, but it seemed they were held back technically.
Definitely, yeah, on console specifically, it was rough.
I really wish them well with this, and it seems like a love letter to Silent Hill, but it seems very uniquely them with the Polish setting and being in the 80s. And the more that I've, like I say, the incremental nature of watching this get unveiled slowly within the interviews and the extra footage and actual gameplay footage, and the more I warm to them as people, as developers. I love the fellow was like, I'm going to be on telly, I'll get my Hulk t-shirt and my Corgi hat. And this looks really interesting. And you never know, if this is a launch title, this could be a really big deal for them as a company. And I love to see companies like this evolve.
Yeah, it said holiday 2020, didn't it? So that sounds right on the money for being a launch title, yeah.
Anybody want to chime in?
I'll chip in now.
I can tell the tone of your voice already. I could hear you breathing.
Oh my god! I don't know what it is on the face of it. Right, this looks really cool. Like visually beautiful, with the world kind of going snap and just changing like that. It was grimy and gritty, and it looked nice, but God, it's just quiet hummock. It just looks like a Silent Hill because Konami aren't doing them anymore. And hiring Akira Yamaoka feels so on the nose. Like that, just immediately I heard it. That sounds like Yamaoka as it is. For God's sake, it just feels too close.
But
to
they
what
love
a Silent
horror
Hill
games.
Is.
Horror games is their thing.
Me.
Silent Hill 2 is their favourite game ever.
Good, make a different game.
They are. They are because
okay. I will say it's my fears are probably unfounded here. This is probably just my brain not being good to me. But all I'm doing, I could just hear the word Silent Hill, Silent Hill, Silent Hill in the back of my head the whole time I was watching this. Not to take away from it. I think it looks lovely, but it's a personal block in my brain. And I understand. I get it because we championed. Immortal Unchained last year.
Immortal Unchained, Alex
doing their Demon
Outward.
Souls. They're doing their Demon Souls. They're doing their Souls game, and we champion those. But I don't know why I don't feel the same about this one. This one rankles me. It felt, I don't know, just a bit on the nose for me.
It's
I don't
probably
know.
because of all of the Silent Hill games that have come out in recent years. That's probably why you're so annoyed that someone's actually putting a Silent Hill game out when Konami aren't.
Well, the irony is that Konami have been making crap versions of Silent Hill games for years and years and years, and here we've got a team who their favourite game is Silent Hill 2. They're doing something that's obviously clearly influenced by it. They're ringing that bell loudly, not only from a sense of pride from their own perspective, but also if somebody else is looking at this and going like, oh, this looks a bit Silent Hill, they're going like, yes, we love Silent Hill. We've even got Yamaoka on the co-scoring duties. But the quirkiness of the vulnerability of the pregnant woman and like the imagery and going into the other world, and it seems like they're going like, yeah, we really love this, but what if we set it in communist Poland? What if it was in Krakow? They're not setting it in some sort of Midwest American town that's out of nowhere. They're not setting it in New York. They're setting it in a place they know, in a place that's repressed, that is different. They're giving us something that's uniquely them and a taste of something that's off kilter. And I super want them to succeed with this because they seem to be like really proud. This could be their Demon's Souls moment.
I mean, it's set in an abandoned hotel, which is, I mean, again, fairly on the nose as these things go. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a grumpy Gus on this one. Can we to change tax a little bit then? To change tax a little bit. Something from the interviews at the end. Now I know there've been a lot of every trailer we've seen so far. They've been talking about this smart delivery thing. So you bar it on the one, you get it on the other one. You bar it on you get it back and forth. And they banged and banged and banged. Everyone banged the drum. It banged on and on. And I think it's really good. I like that. This one again. Watching this, assuming that is gameplay, that's what it looks like. So they're making this game for the Xbox Series X. Good Lord, get better at naming machines, Microsoft. They make it, but they're also making it for the Xbox One as well. So you're talking about all this great power, and we can do the no load times and all the new things we can do, but you're also making it for the old machine as well. How does that run on the current machine? I don't get it.
Well,
I don't get it. Is this me being thick? Because I don't get it.
Well, the answer is it runs at 30 frames per second and probably at something less than 4K on Xbox One.
Chugs like a choo-choo train.
And with load times and probably with the fan going 10 to the dozen.
Observer, even though it was kind of a very much a walking game, it struggled technically a lot. But the way that it drew you in was that seemed to be Bloober on their Blade Runner tip. They'd even got Rutger Hauer as the main character. There was even one room you walked into early on, which had this big computer setup and all of these sort of all these TVs and monitors, and it was going all across the room. And in the centre of it, the keyboard was a Commodore 64, and that to me says everything about these people. That they're celebrating the things that they love and they're using them to influence their own work, and I kind of dig that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not. I mean, this point isn't really about them. It's about this whole practice of the smart delivery, I guess. And maybe we can save this for later if you want, or we can get into it now. But if we've got new machine with lots and lots of MIGs and teraflops and RAMs, we can do these great big worlds, and we're cutting out all those, like in the Mark Cerny thing that came up, cutting out those corridors that used to hide the loading, cutting all that out. If you are still having to design, because Microsoft has said that basically all the games are going to run on both machines for a while at least, aren't they?
2 years, yeah.
Yeah. So you still have to design it knowing that it has to run on that old game. Does that not hamper new ideas, forward development? Does that not hamper like the way you build a world, compared to if you were just building it for the One X, like if you just built the Series X? My God, get better at names.
Right,
like,
I put this to you though.
Does that hamper it? Because that's something I'm worried about. Genuinely,
I will retrofit this for you.
Go on.
I mean, like obviously, if you're looking at something like Halo Infinite, it's going to be looking far muddier on an original Xbox One than it will look on the Xbox One X or the Xbox Series X. But I say this to you now: if games are still being designed around all of those machines, one of your favourite games this year has been Greedfall, and Greedfall is designed like an Xbox 360 or a PS3 game, and yet that has more character and more wonderment than any of your open world games that have come out like in the last couple of years. So if they are keeping, they're not just fucking the audience into the bin straight away. They're saying like, well, there's going to be a transition, and I've seen the other side of it. Like I saw somebody recently going like, well, it's hardly going to be that much of a step up if these new games aren't the all singing or dancing from out of the box. But I quite like that. I mean, you said yourself you might not be getting a new machine for a good year or two, so I kind of like that inclusivity. And also,
true, but like,
a lot
you've got this brand new machine. Like, why do you need that when you can have the same game, admittedly running a bit slower? But for me, graphics aren't. I don't care. Like,
but you're giving people an option, and that's all you're doing. You're giving people options. You're having you as a PS4 owner versus a PS5 owner, and you're still able to get games. And if you're not a graphics guy, that's fine. You can still play things on your PS4. It's not taking new stuff away from you.
Can I give it to you this way then? Can I give it to you this way? So, when I think of for the current gen, for the PS4, Xbox One, this gen, when I think of what like a next gen feature was for that generation, the game I always come back to, the one that literally stands out straight away, was Shadow of Mordor, because that had this cool nemesis system where random orcs could kind of get personalities, they could grow and they would change, and like you just couldn't do that before. Like it couldn't happen. You couldn't have had that on a PS3. I don't think it would have worked. That for me was like
PS3 version, was it?
Yeah, this is the next gen. This is the thing like that really sings like, yo, look what we can do with this power. Yeah. I want to see what we can do with the new generation with all this extra power and dingle dangles and stuff and teraflips and flops. I want to see what new cool behind graphics, whatever, bin, don't care. Show me like the stuff that you can now make happen, the environments that kind of unfold and can change, and show me how worlds can change. If you still are hampered by having to design for both machines, you're not going to see the best of the machine until 2022. You're not going to see those big, oh my god, you have to see this moments. I don't know. It's concerned me going forwards, and I know Sony haven't shown off much yet themselves, and that's I'm not basing this on anything that like we've seen at the end. We're just sort of working by what we've seen and what we've been told so far. But I don't know. I want to see them. I want to see them go. We're making this game for our limited, and this, look what we can do with all this. Look what we can do, and they're not. By keeping that inclusivity in, which is good, they're also stopping themselves for really jumping for that goal, for that high bar, for that shoot to the moon. I
kind of think that they are going to be shooting to the moon, but then they're going to be stripping away frame rates and graphical fidelity to fit it on the lower machines. I think that's what they're going to do. Like you go for the top end machine, you get all your ideas in there, and then you strip it back. And we even had it like at this point when the Xbox One and the PS4 were coming out, where all of a sudden the games that were released on both weren't quite as good on the previous one, like a Black Flag and stuff like that. So. So yeah, get Titanfall, even though it's Bluepoint doing the conversion. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because we've yet to see the first party stuff from Microsoft. We've yet to see really what Sony's going to throw at us. And I think that whoever
I would say we get to see gameplay on the new machines,
but whoever makes the biggest splash on that will influence how quickly that kind of mentality sticks around. If it is like we're saying that there's this 2 years sort of lean in. If Sony come out and they go like, this is what all the PS5 stuff's doing, it couldn't be done on PS4. Maybe it isn't coming out on PS4, like for some of these games. Again, I can't kind of imagine that they do that. But if Sony make a big splash with that will immediately impact Microsoft moving forward, I think.
So Microsoft have very definitely said that for all their first party stuff for the first couple of years of the Xbox Series X's life, they will all also come out on Xbox One consoles. Sony haven't. Sony have are rumored that, and I think they've said there is going to be backwards compatibility on the PlayStation 5, but they've not said that any new games coming out would also have to run on PlayStation 4. So, and third parties don't have to make their games available on both Xbox One and Series X. They can choose just to release a game that works on Series X. What we're seeing at the moment with these games, and particularly talking about the Medium, is this is a developer who's they're putting everything. This is their game. This is all they do. This is not an EA. This is not an Activision. They don't need to be pumping out game after game after game. They need to be able to sell this game on as many places as possible in order to make the money back. So they are absolutely going to need to sell this on Xbox One and Xbox Series X, because this holiday you can't really just put a game out that's going to be costing millions of dollars just on a new console. So they were probably targeting Xbox One. They've worked with Microsoft to say that they can optimize it for Series X. I think to your point, Paddy, about you want to see developers shooting for the stars, the Medium and Bloober team are not the developers you look to do that. Not in a generation crossover sort of release like this. Shadow of Mordor is a great example where WB and Monolith Soft that did that. Monolith Soft or Monolith Studios? I can never remember which it is. Monolith, whichever one it is. They did shoot for the moon with the Nemesis system, and then they stripped the Nemesis system out for Xbox 360 and PS3. So the reason to buy the new console and to play it on there is Nemesis system. And I think we might see similar things happen with other studios. One of the things that was pointed at was the likes of God of War and Jedi Fallen Order, where you had those really tight squeeze through this corridor parts where that was hiding a loading screen. That sort of game design is going to go away, and you're absolutely right. If you're straddling generations, you can't throw those away because you need them for the old system, but that's not what this game is.
I think they were very proud of the fact that because of the new SSD stuff, that there would be no loading screens, no transitions or anything like that. They did mention that, and it is a case of them putting all their eggs in one basket for this, and you ring every bell you can. But I think that the foundation for me with this is that there's something that really intrigues me about the setting and the pregnant woman and all that sort of stuff. It seems a little bit quirky, and I liked there was something super sincere I got from Bloober with kind of, we're really excited with this, we're doing our Silent Hill, and it seems that they're doing it better than Konami have for a million years.
Not hard.
And the games that utilise like squeezing through tight space to mask loading screen, they are generally from the big AAA studios, and they're using those techniques that they can afford to put time into developing to mask loading screens. So you can't speed up the time it takes someone to walk through a corridor, really. That's not going to dynamically shift. But the games where they just dump you to a loading screen, that's going to evaporate, hopefully, on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. So we will see the benefit, even if they're released across generations, for those games. The likes of the Medium, I imagine, is a game where they're probably not going to be pulling all the strings to mask loading screens, etc., because they don't necessarily have the budget and the people to put time into doing that at the expense of your nuts and bolts gameplay. Using the Medium as an example, it may be they are, but as an example of a game that's AA or whatever you want to call it, where they are going to dump people to loading screens, and some loading screens we get on the current gen, even if you've got a PlayStation 4 Pro or even if you've got an Xbox One X, we're talking 60 plus seconds in some cases of loading screens. In theory, like what they're saying with Spider-Man on PlayStation 5, that evaporates down to less than 5 seconds of a loading screen. So even if it's cross-gen, even if it's smart delivery, you still will see a benefit for some, maybe many games, just in terms of the raw performance.
So you've got there's the bit about Bloober team here that so they put out Layers of Fear in 2016, then Observer in 2017, and Blair Witch took them twice as long, like 2019. And it says that there's 30 people there. 30 people created
Did they
that.
Not make?
Well
was
played,
there not Layers of Fear 2? Or am I misremembering? I feel like it may not have been them. It may have been someone else. But I feel like there was a Layers of Fear 2.
You see, like it's weird if you go further back than this. Like there's like Vita games and PS3 games like Amen and Deathmatch Village, and it's interesting to see them go like further and further back to like Nintendo DS and stuff. It's nice to see a timeline in that regard. Makes me happy.
Layers of Fear 2.
But this was the story of
May 2019, so released within 6 months of Blair Witch. Bloober Team listed as developer, so they've clearly got
well played
sets of multiple games on development, even if they haven't split into multiple teams. So, yeah.
And that's the story of how I had a very long breakdown overseeing a 2-second transition of a real world turned into a hell world, and I had a breakdown over the entire day over this. So there you go. Sorry for the rant.
No,
it kind of felt like the place to put it in. Like it felt like
it makes for a good discussion. But what I will say is, like, tying back towards a Vampire Masquerade's Bloodlines #2, whatever it was called. Like, they presented a world here that looked a million miles better than that Vampire one did. And they actually told us a story. They told us about the development. They told us the things they'd loved. And it seemed like apples and pears, mate.
It's very good.
Thanks.
But yeah, but not to down on the game. I think it does look good. It just left a bit too much of a Silent Hill taste in my face. But maybe that will change as more stuff comes out for it. But again, initial gut reactions and stuff, React channels, that's what we are.
So we then went to Scarlet Nexus, so Bamco, and apparently the thing that's seen in the press is like, it's the ex Tales developers, which I think means Timps, who did God Eater, Code Vein, and Future Wars on Vita. For me, it seemed a bit jarring with the switch to the anime characters, but I really liked the enemies. I thought the designs were fantastic. I like the kind of flower creatures; they were really good. Game looks a bit Devil May Cry on the face of it. I thought it looked all right.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be a God Eater. I've written down Code Vein and God Eater, the two things that immediately kicked out. Monsters that look like bunches of flowers. We got to see a man do a finishing move on a pot plant. That's cool. I mean, okay. I mean, I couldn't really see what was going on, but he definitely did a magic sword attack on a pot plant. So that's cool, I guess. Yeah. Oh, Japan.
Yeah, the cell shaded, I guess, anime style characters is about the best way of describing them. The human characters, at least. It was really tough not to think, Astral Chain. As kind of, I guess that relates to the Devil May Cry look of it from last year.
Well, also the buildings did seem to be sort of, there was like these little electric kind of wires that were coming down from the buildings. And
were there buildings? I was looking at the flower monsters.
The flower monsters, I loved the design. They looked a little bit Silent Hill to me. I also like that really big boss that, when you were looking at it, you were kind of like, what are you? what are you?
Yeah.
But
it was tough not to watch this and think of Code Vein, Gravity Rush, Astral Chain, all the other games that evoke this sort of stuff. And if it can be the sort of level of those kind of games, absolutely great, no problem with it being. But you're stepping up to the plate that is already got a lot of heavy hitters on it. That seems like the sort of thing where you'd maybe want to carve out initially your own kind of identity and not just lean on stuff that immediately people, like we all have said, that looks a bit like this, that looks a bit like that. It kind of...
I suppose to play devil's advocate, like in a sea of super violent, super horrific stuff that we've had almost entirely before this, bar one, at least it's giving a different audience a chance to go, that game's for me.
Yeah.
So I hope they make a success of it, because if they get the Devil May Cry formula down well, it's a decent story. And it's fun to play. All credit to them.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Any more to add, my beauties?
I would say I thought it was a little bit hard to follow what was going on at times. Like, it's very definitely like we get the gameplay that was unashamedly looked like gameplay. I think it was very much like I'm doing the finishing move part of the gameplay, which is what a lot of these tend to flit to. Well, again, there's more of this to come. But, like, you just show off, like, the scripted finishing moves, like the cool big attack, like, oh, no, show me the man running around a bit more. Show me, like, does it look like Devil May Cry? Does it control more like a Monster Hunter, like what were we saying, God Eater? Like, does it play more like that? You know, is it a Soulsy kind of game? Like, is it a Code Vein? Is it
what does a basic combo or basic movement look like?
Yeah. Like, is the character independent of the camera? Like, where's the camera compared to the character? Like, these are things that I would like to see. Like, what does it look like to play the thing? Like, we've all got, every game like this has got the big flashy kill moves. We've all got those, and they were very pretty flashy kill moves. But show me what the game is. It looked interesting, but show me what the game is.
I did like that it was bright.
Oh yeah,
it was a game about monsters that wasn't black.
Colourful, yeah, pinks and oranges and purples.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I quite like the caution tape was good near the start. Like, I enjoyed all that like kind of holographic caution tape everywhere. That was fun.
But I think that within that visual style, that if you go onto like a gaming site now and there's an update for Scarlet Nexus, you probably know it by the colour scheme, because you'll see the white, the black, the red, the pink, and you'll go, oh right, that's that. And so all credit to them. I like that. So then we had Second Extinction, which is Avalanche, shooting dinosaurs, running down a hill.
I mean, yeah. I was trying to come up with a Left 4 Dead pun with dinosaurs, and nothing good happened. I didn't get anything good. This was nothing. This was less than nothing. This was disappointing. The animation on the dinosaurs was bad. Like, they didn't look good. Think how good, right? So I will give you this. Think how great things like the Anjanath look in Monster Hunter. Think how alive those monsters feel. And compare it to this, where they just run at you and chomp. Like, it was terrible. They didn't look like interesting or different. It was just, here's some raptor things that are going to run at you and go chomp, and you've got 4 mates. Please buy 4 copies of our game. It doesn't look great. Go on, trick some of your friends to playing it with you.
Because the cool thing is, and especially with you warming to Monster Hunter this gen, is that although those creatures are really big and bright and chunky and like super sketched and designed, there's so much personality in those creatures. There's so much conniving and ferocity and levels of unusual that you're not just sort of planning your next attack, but you're kind of staring them down. I still think, like with that Anjanath, when we played the demo of the first one, and it went down a really tiny tunnel, and we were like, oh, it's going to a different area, and then it just turned round and looked as if like I've bottlenecked you, and then literally turned round and breathed fire right the way down the hole. And we were just like, oh, do you remember
that was the origin of us yelling, I didn't mean it, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it.
Look how, do you remember that fight that we had in the Iceborne demo with the Tigrex as well, where it's skidding around on the ice, and then it was like the more the ice got worn down, the more the creature got traction within its attacks, and all of those things. That's Monster Hunter World raised the bar even further for Monster Hunter with that kind of stuff. So if you put in a dinosaur in anything now, they've not just got to be kind of lizard-like cannon fodder. There's got to be something a little bit, you know, like what's that quote from Jurassic Park? Was it like naughty girl or something like
Clever
that?
Clever girl.
Yeah. Because that literally that should be on the box for Monster Hunter, because they're devious.
I would say I think this looks as well like. Looks like one of those rubbish, cheap Steam games you get that float around.
It does.
Do you know what I mean?
Jim Sterling does a video on.
Yeah, and they're like usually like 50p within a week because no one bought it. And you get your friends to buy a bad copy, and we all play a bad game together. My favourite one of those, back on the Polygon forums. Do you remember you used to talk about a game called Revelations 2012?
I do.
Sean McElroy, noted villain, Sean McElroy, my good friend, bought almost everyone on that forum a copy of that game over one fateful Steam sale, and I've played it a few times, and it is probably the worst Left 4 Dead clone that exists. It's so bad, and they've completely refitted the entire game and made it worse somehow 2 years after it came out. It used to have personality. There was a dance button for no reason. There was a dance button. Why? we don't know. We just started doing backflips at some point. It was a hoot and a holler. But like this looked like one of those. Admittedly, maybe with a bit of a shiny coat of paint, but it just the personality. No personality. Why is your game interesting? We shoot the dinosaurs together. That's not enough.
So to play devil's advocate a little, I would say I think what they wanted people to get excited about with this is a lot of people for a while now have been calling for a Turok game or remaster or remake or a Dino Crisis remake. I think people feel like a shooter in which there are also dinosaurs is something that they haven't necessarily had their fill of. And where you've had games like Monster Hunter or Horizon Zero Dawn, they haven't really scratched the specific itch people want of being in a first-person environment with a dinosaur coming at you, and here's what I'm going to do to handle the situation. This is from... So it's not just Avalanche, because Avalanche have split themselves off. And again, it's Avalanche Studios, not the other Avalanche, because there's two of them as well. They've split themselves into, I think, 3 different development teams. This is Systemic Reaction, I think, is the name of the actual specific team.
I've written down Systemic something.
Who did Generation Zero a couple of years ago, which was a co-op shooter with robots as the enemies, I think. That
got
battered a bit, but it got kind of a sort of fairly sort of cultish style audience of people who were interested in playing it. And this is, again, squad-based, so we know that they can do squad-based, whether or not it's successful or not. I wasn't quite sure how many players. At one point they had a shot where there was 3 people on screen, so it might be a kind of a 3-player co-op thing. I think there's potential here. I don't think the trailer showed anything more than you're shooting dinosaurs and there's lots of them, so they're probably going to get you. It looked fast. It looked like there was a lot of action going on.
There's your box quote.
It looked fast. There was a lot of action going on. There was clearly, some polish to it, and it was fast, and there were dinosaurs. But there's potential there, I think, because we know Avalanche. They may be a little hit or miss, and what remains to be seen what this studio are going to be able to do after Generation Zero. But I think there's potential here, and I think there's an audience for it in the same way that the Predator game that's just come out, there's people who definitely don't like that game. I also know groups of people who are quite happy to hop in there for some co-op fun because everything's better with friends. And if they can make something that's fun as a co-op shooter, as a Left 4 Dead, as a substitute until we get something Dino Crisis or Turok related, then more power to them. But yeah, I didn't necessarily inspire me, even if I am interested to see a bit more of this.
So in glorious news, the fact that Yakuza Like a Dragon is a launch title, I think is fantastic. And from listening to 8-4 who have been knee deep in this for a while, apparently the game is an absolute belter. Everything I've heard about it is great. I'm pretty sure I'd seen most of that trailer before, but I didn't really care because Yakuza is going to be a launch title, and that's amazing.
It's huge.
Yeah,
like nothing here I think hadn't been shown before in some form. I don't think I'd seen nothing surprised me on this, but that's not what that's about. The fact it's on, the Yakuza games have now turned up on the Xbox machine, which is the story. It's. And sadly, I won't be able to play this game for at least 3 years because my brain won't let me play it until I've played through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
That's fair enough.
And these games are long, yo. Like Yakuza 0, I played last year, and that was like 85 hours, and I've got to do 6 more of those before I can get to this. But because I enjoy Yakuza, I think it's a cool series, and I'm definitely getting my teeth into it. But my god, this one looks like the one that's made for me to play, doesn't it? This looks silly.
It's the one where he's apparently a really big Dragon Quest fan.
Yeah.
And you can bring in slimes and stuff, and you can call in people that you've met in the town to come and help you.
Or shrimp.
I'm sure they were saying on 8-4 that there's a certain point where because you're quite nice to, you look out for like the adult performers, that you can call them into battles to distract enemies.
Oh my word!
It's like, oh Christ! But it looks bonkers, and I really like that Dragon Quest thing. And all credit to Sega for taking a formula which they could have gone forward with, given the popularity of the series now in the West. But they've gone like, nope. we're reinventing it. We're doing something different, and it looks good. And maybe they got a taste of that because I still want to play Judgment.
Yeah.
Judgment still calls out to me as something that looks a little bit super cool.
And Judgment's a good example of, okay, let's take the gameplay and change the protagonist, change maybe the focus of it, but ultimately it's, as far as I've seen, it's very Yakuza style gameplay, environment, traversal, etc. Whereas for the actual Yakuza sequel, yeah, okay, they want to change their protagonist. They could have just made another Yakuza with a different protagonist. There's plenty of characters in that series that they could have focused on and just kept it otherwise largely the same. And they haven't, and it's really good to hear. This is the first I've heard of it, to be fair. It's good to hear that seems to have worked for them. People are responding to it well, and people who could quite easily have been put off by a change in that series formula.
Did I see a few old friends near the start of it as well?
Yeah.
Is it Majima? Is that the guy's name? The guy with the eye patch?
Who is? Let me just check my notes here. It says he is Bay. In my notes, it says Majima is Bay. B-A-E. I don't know if you're saying that right, but I love my sweet stupid boy. I love him so much.
But like I say, I'm made up for the fact that if people are going to buy a machine on launch day and say they've got Halo Infinite will be on Game Pass anyway, so people will be getting it in with the machine. But if I was staring down the likes of Yakuza Like a Dragon, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and like a few others, Yakuza would be something that for me would be a nice contrast to whatever else I got.
The only qualifier I would put on that is they said it's going to be a launch slate title, which sounds an awful lot like what Nintendo did with the Switch with the launch window stuff. So
yeah, that
it's
sounds
it's
good.
obviously a game that is already out in Japan. It takes a lot of localization. I'm guessing they're hoping to have it out in time for launch day, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was a month or 2 or 3 late, to be honest.
I mean, we were talking about Monster Hunter earlier. Like, and I know Microsoft have mentioned that they're going to piece the games out, but wouldn't it be good, like, if say the machine is launching in November, and you've got your Valhallas, your Halo Infinites and stuff around it. If Yakuza Like a Dragon launched in January,
it would absolutely dominate. Yeah,
100%.
Absolutely.
I'd like to see that. I hope that's
obviously with the caveat that depends what else is coming. If Halo gets pushed back to then, there's so many other things that could change that. But a January release for something like that, and it seems like Yakuza is exactly the sort of game that could have come a year or 2 down the line on Xbox after having come to PlayStation. It doesn't look like that's the case. We've got Yakuza games on Game Pass, I think I'm right in saying.
Yeah, 0 and 1 are
so
there.
the series is coming over onto Xbox, and it looks like it's going to launch on Xbox at the same time as on PlayStation, which is a real big boon, and something that, looking through this list of games, there's several here that seem to be the sort of games that would appeal to either a Japanese audience, but also an audience that likes Japanese games, even thinking back to The Medium being something that's kind of based on Silent Hill, for example.
God, I hadn't thought about that. And
yeah, you look at Scarlet Nexus, obviously that's got a heavy anime inspiration there. There are games here, even as I say, Second Extinction, things that pop to my mind are Dino Crisis. That's a Capcom title. There is something there that I think Microsoft are going for with this kind of slate of games. I think you could say it's ticking boxes across kind of the different regions, but I think it's clear they're not just going all out for the likes of shooters and sports games that you maybe would have seen Xbox in the past be kind of touted as being good for. So, yeah.
So finally,
the gameplay reveal.
What was the thing that was at the bottom? Expected gameplay Was it something like expected gameplay and expected Xbox Series X experience or something like that?
Good
it was
lord.
It was weird.
Woolly worded, mealy mouthed statement. It's just weird.
It was bizarre.
Lies.
I'm interested in the game, genuinely, but this just seemed like it's not really gameplay if you're doing sort of 3-second cuts of different bits that again don't seem like gameplay, and they've now sort of rolled that back and said that it's a gameplay teaser or something. But I saw a video earlier and they said that on YouTube it's got something like 19,000 likes and 31,000 dislikes.
And the director...
Well, here's the thing. When you say gameplay reveal, right? When you say gameplay reveal, I expect to see... like, for this game, I expect to see a man on a boat, sail that boat towards somewhere, get off, and have a bit of a fight.
Yeah.
That is what I want to see. I don't want to see... Let me just check my notes here. 3 shots of scripted takedowns and a little bit of running and a couple of looks at some scenery.
And you have to look for them as well.
It's gameplay, apparently.
For them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If somebody had told me that this was a lead-in for a new character in that Ubisoft fighting game, I can't think what it's called, the one that came out a few years ago. Yeah. For Honor. If somebody had told me this was a new character that was going to be in that, I'd have gone, yeah.
God, I hadn't twigged that. That's oh my god.
Because the thing that saddens me about this is, I think Ashraf Ishmael is really, really great. I love hearing him speak. I think he's a great bloke, and I think he's tried to walk this back as best as he could.
And it's not his fault, by the way. It's not his fault how this was marketed and how this was put forward.
No.
Not his fault. It's Ubisoft and Microsoft's fault, absolutely, but it's not his fault. And he has done a great job of explaining, like, not kowtowing to the absolute idiots out there who are using this as an excuse to just abuse people online, but he has clarified the situation, apologised for the fact that this was misrepresented, and handled it absolutely beautifully, when he could have come out rather bullishly and said, you know, the sorts of things that Marty Stratton said about the Doom Eternal soundtrack situation earlier in the week. He could have really actually mishandled this, and he didn't. I don't think and he seems like a really genuine, nice guy.
I like him a lot.
And is forced to deal with this because he's director of the game, but not his fault, I don't think.
So, that's it. I presume...
Before we... Hang on. Something, just the little thing that I gramped on from the bit when they chatted with Ashraf, which, again, like, I agree, he came across really well. Still not that into the plot idea that Britain's all fighting and then the Vikings come and kind of take over it. I'm from Britain. I don't like the idea of that. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't sit well with me. Like, I don't want to be a raider. It doesn't sit well. I know that a lot of assassins in the past haven't exactly been good people either, but this one doesn't sit
and also,
right. I don't know.
A lot of British people in the past weren't exactly nice people when it came to raiding other countries.
True.
So maybe take
Absolutely
this one on the chin,
but it's
Paddy.
happening to us this time. So it's happening to us this time. So.
Right, okay. If we're getting into this, as far as I've been able to sort of... As far as I've been able to
Before you
tell
tune me out, I understand that context is everything, but the initial bite has not grabbed me much.
There's a really fantastic reaction on Eurogamer with
Zoe Delahunty-Light,
Zoe Delahunty-Light, who's seemingly, I think she studied history and she's very, very excited about this period of time. And I've watched this video 3 times now, and I think she's joyously passionate about the nuances of it. And as far as I can tell, that rather than it being sort of good guys and bad guys, they start it off in Scandinavia and show the conditions that these people can barely exist in because it's so cold. They come over to England and basically have a better place to exist, and parts of those people are obviously going to go trying to take more, and Britain's going to react to it. You've got the petty kingdoms of England that are all separate, but rather than being the moustache twirling villain, the king that's showed in the video is actually a guy apparently that brings literacy to England, and he's a good man. And I think the balancing out like the who you are as a person and how, and they were saying there's almost like a version of the Nemesis system where you can build up the people in your party, and if you go into battle and they get injured or they win or whatever, their personalities will change as they go along. But I think the balance is how you want to play it and who you want your character to be. If you want to be the rampaging Viking that goes through England sort of trying to take it, or if you adapt as you go along. And apparently within the story of this is the Vikings do get defeated. They end up going to Valhalla. So how they play about with history within that, within the choices that your character makes, sounds interesting. People have speculated that the bear with the scar over its eyes that's on the box is Odin. That the Vikings believe that their gods walk amongst them. So that your raven might be Odin as well. I think one of the
or maybe one of Odin's ravens, because Odin obviously has two in mythology. So
two, yeah. And there was also a thing with saying that one of the pre-order bonuses or something is like a skin for your wolf. So they were wondering if like you can like summon like different creatures within that, or if you ride a wolf or whatever it might be.
Couldn't they?
Yeah. So no, like hearing how passionate she was talking about the nuances and then applying those to the game features that she'd looked into, that's what lit a fire under me, like way more than any of those trailers. And that is a criticism of the way for me that they've presented the game even thus far. That, you know, we've seen a historian who's gone like, oh, this happens and this happens and that guy's not a bad guy, and I don't know. That's the part that's really excited me.
And
with
to
Valhalla.
be fair, the two trailers we've seen, I get me excited for a game, for a series that I have played several of, but kind of fallen off of. Odyssey I'm kind of considering getting into, but there was stuff about Origins I didn't really like, so it's kind of and ah, and I'd kind of forgotten about it. But all the stuff about that I've seen in the trailers for this game makes me interested, intrigued and excited. I don't think the trailers are at all bad. I think it's literally just a misrepresentation or a mismanagement of people's expectations, which this whole event I think was. To kind of wrap up my feelings on this event, Microsoft have been incredibly transparent, incredibly forthcoming. They've laid out what their roadmap is going to be, and this is the first time where I felt, hang on, this is not what I was told.
It's a misstep.
They didn't say, here's some trailers for upcoming Xbox games. They said, this is our gameplay reveal for our reveal for Series X gameplay from our partners around the world. So you get from that, it's third party.
It felt like they just carved their normal press conference into two, and they were doing their first party stuff a bit further down the line, and this was going to be the other stuff, which is what has always been probably the best part of the last number of years.
So for me, though, the problem here though is that they've, like you say, it feels like they've carved this middle chunk of the press conference out. You know, the bit where the conference slows a little bit and we get to see some other stuff, but it doesn't have the bangers. And like, I felt like the ending with Aaron Greenberg at the end, I really felt like he was saying, oh, so this was like some stuff, but in July, get hyped for the actual show. It really felt like it like demeaned and it diminished what we'd seen by him saying, oh, so but the stuff that's coming soon, that's the real stuff. That's the stuff that we're all the most excited about. It just felt like
like a real anticlimax,
mismarketed misstep.
You can't get away with many of those, and I'd agree with James that Microsoft have rarely put a foot out of step
for a couple of years now.
With the way that they've
done
been
really well, I think.
This was a rare fumble,
and the frustrating thing is,
and I think they've got to recover from this, especially given what we presume is going to be Sony. Sony now got the ball in their hands, and I genuinely hope they don't fuck it up, because again, if Sony ballpark this alleged early June thing, it means Microsoft have got to be super on the game, Otherwise, they may have lost the plot. Like you know what I mean. It may well be that this is how you exchange games.
Moment. Start of momentum, maybe swinging away from Microsoft. But I think the frustrating thing is, as an inside Xbox goes, this was actually one of their better ones. I think it was. I wrote down here 9 out of the 13 games I'd not heard of before. That's not to say they hadn't been released or whatever. 9 out of 13 were new to me. Of those, 12 out of 13, Madden's the only one that I'm not interested in seeing more of. I'm not saying I'm excited from the games. I'm not saying I think I'll play them. But I'm interested in finding out more about like the vast majority of games in this. The problem is it wasn't just pitched as here's an inside Xbox. It was pitched as this is a gameplay reveal, so get ready to get wowed about 100%. Series X, and that didn't happen for me. And
if they'd have gone in going like, we've got 12 games or whatever it is that nobody's seen before that we're going to be showing you. We're not doing our E3 conference this year, but we've got some stuff that nobody's even heard of, and we can't wait to share it with you. If they'd have pitched it like that, you'd have gone. The perspective at the end of this would have been completely different because they'd have delivered on what was there. But people were, myself included, were left to go like, oh, we're going to see Elden Ring, or we're going to see
that was the other thing. So Microsoft set this up as third-party reveal, and yet, so absolutely, I was there. Okay, maybe we'll get more Cyberpunk. Well, okay, CD Projekt Red they've said they're going to do their own thing in the summer, so they wouldn't necessarily show here as well. And then I thought Elden Ring. Well, okay, there's no necessary reason why it had to be here. Assassin's Creed and Yakuza are great big sort of tentpole titles that absolutely stand alongside those that I've just mentioned, but it did feel a little bit like people's expectations got mismanaged by Microsoft, but also not just by Microsoft. I saw in chats before this started of, what are we going to see here? Oh, Halo's going to be here. No, Microsoft were really clear this was third party, and I absolutely adore Eurogamer. I watch almost as much of their stuff as I can. I love the video presenters, all three of them, but the preamble to this show that I watched of them doing the chat for 20 minutes beforehand, they were saying, they've said it's third party, but maybe we'll see Fable 4, maybe we'll see Halo. No, stop. You're feeding into the mismanagement of expectations that fans are doing to themselves. You're making the situation worse by being misinformed and by perpetuating misinformation.
But I watched the playback of their reaction to the event, and barring Zoe Delonte Light, it was a bit embarrassing.
The amount of stuff they got wrong was kind of bad, and I'm not one to say, just because I happen to keep a lot of this information on tap, and I get plenty wrong as well, so it's really not on for me to point at someone who maybe in games media, it may be their job, etc. They don't know everything, but some of the stuff was like, no, like right from the off it was, no, this has been pitched as this is our partners. This is not. Don't try and bend over backwards to tell me how. Well, maybe they don't see Playground quite yet. As if no, come on, Fable's not at this. Don't one more thing. Don't manage expectations of your audience properly. I know you want to be excited, but do this properly and at least have the information on hand so that you're not misrepresenting what this is. So that then an Assassin's Creed trailer ends up with 31,000 downvotes on it because people thought it was something it wasn't. And that's not on Eurogamer, that's on Ubisoft and Microsoft as well, because they said gameplay and it wasn't. Microsoft have plenty of blame to be put on their shoulders, but to see people in the media, and it's not just Eurogamer, it's other people as well, talking about, here's what I hope to see. Great, be excited, absolutely, but at least be excited about things you think are possible. Let's not be excited about things that are obviously not going to be at this. It's the same when you get prediction shows for E3, and it's like, I think we're going to see, and it's just like pink whale after pink whale of games that are clearly not all going to appear at one E3, but suddenly everyone expects Half-Life 3 to pop up. Well, no. Valve would not announce that at E3 or on a Microsoft stage, or that's not what's happening here. Let's just scale our expectations accordingly.
I'd say it's a similar reaction to when, do you remember when Sony started putting out their first what they're called, State of Play? Is that what they're called? About 6 months ago, and like I was like, oh cool, they're doing like a digital show. Cool, they're doing their own direct, and like all of like the bigger sites and a lot of like, I was trying to find a stream of it, and like I literally put in State of Play on the first one, like, and to YouTube to see what I could find, and there were probably 40, 50 channels coming up on that first page, like live stream reaction, and the thing was 15 minutes long. And then it's like, you must all feel very stupid. Like the expectation, like, this is not the big E3 show, this is not that big show. And I felt like we were all, I was excited going in. I thought, I'm going to see some gameplay. I was legitimately looking forward to seeing some big stuff. I mean, I would have liked to have seen an Elden Ring. I mean, it could have been a place it could have turned up, but maybe it's...
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to say it's... Maybe I'm saying... I'm not speaking out of turn. Maybe Elden Ring is going to be too big for this kind of reveal, this kind of show. It's got its place on the main stage, to pardon the air quotes.
We've now got 4 months of Jeff Keighley shows, and we've got IGN's Summer of Games, and
GameSpot there's their thing as well.
It seems that we've got a lot of platforms for things to get released in like these tiny little pockets, but I hope they make the most of their individual spotlights and kind of shine more of a light on what they are, how they've been developed. Like, really just give me a little bit more. And I think for this one, for this show, this is why the Bloober game stood out for me, because we actually got to get our kind of teeth into it a little bit more. And that wasn't the same with the rest of it. And also the fact that the majority of these were just CG trailers. I don't care if it's in engine or not. It wasn't gameplay
we've established
stuff,
we went through the Killzone situation of... and that's why we got all of the in-game footage stuff. Well, in-engine footage, that's not the same as gameplay. If you pitch something as gameplay, people know what that should mean, and it isn't in-engine cutscenes. That's call it in-engine. Absolutely, don't call it gameplay. That's a really clear mislabeling of what the majority of this was. I think the interesting thing is, as you say, CJ, is what this did for me. They may have misrepresented what it was going to be, or I felt it was misrepresented, or whatever. But what this showed me is, the next Batman game wasn't here. The next Harry Potter game that we know is coming wasn't here. We did get something from Ubisoft, but this wasn't take out every game from Microsoft's E3 conference last year that wasn't first party, put them all together into one event, and here you go. Because what this tells me is, big publishers, your EAs, your Ubisofts, your Activisions, they're going to have their own showcase. So what Microsoft got is some really interesting stuff, I think, here, but it's not all the big hitters in the way you might expect to see on an E3 stage, because everyone can put their own thing out when they want to. So I think this set expectations, and maybe Sony will be able to get more stuff into their showcase when they get there. I suspect we might see the same, which is Sony may do one event for console and all first party stuff, and they will have third party, but I'm not expecting it to be the next Battlefront on stage there, because EA will put that on their own stage. Like, it tells me to expect more of these all the way through summer, but probably not each one of them to be as big as an E3 conference.
Rad.
I will say this makes it easy for us to podcast it all rather than trying to squeeze in 15 hours of bloody E3 in 4 days. Good lord, it's been refreshing. It's been nice not to have to guzzle it. I can sleep.
It's been a good natter. I've enjoyed it. It is now super way past
my bedtime. It is. Apologies, we went on.
But I think no. I enjoyed it. But thank you both, gentlemen, and we shall reconvene soon. Thank you to everybody that's tuned in. We had a good time, and we will speak
E3
to you
season
soon.
Begins.
E3.
We3 E3.
Goodbye. And
bye.
And stay safe, please.